We are back for another edition of the Awesemo.com Mma Dfs strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for Saturday's UFC Vegas number 21. Finally, Leon Edwards back in the octagon. Of course, we all know he's supposed to take on Khamzat Chimaev. That's not the case. Belal Muhammad, he takes his opportunity here, so we're going to break it down for you. Of course, we're going to break down all the fights here that are going to take place on Saturday night inside the UFC Apex. Of course, this show is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. You got to head over to monkeyknifefight.com. Choose which game you want to play, your contest type. It's all about those player props. I have been playing over there, put some NBA player props in a little bit earlier, so hopefully those can come in tonight. And of course, they do have a great offer. When you use that promo code Awesemo, you get an instant first match deposit up to $50. So sign up today. I was definitely playing some of those props on Saturday, as I smashed that prop bet on the under significant strikes on Amanda Nunes and the under on Megan Anderson. That one did come in for me. So you got to check out our sponsor there, Monkey Knife Fight. Of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, good to be talking to you here on a Thursday night. I guess overall, as you know, you've been breaking down the film for this one. What's kind of your overall thoughts in terms of this fight card?
Well, this fight card compared to last week, and it's tough to compare, but it's a decent fight card. I think it's more like the type of Apex typical card that we're used to. But last week was a treat. I mean, that was an amazing card. And honestly, like, it felt like there was a point, there's like too many fights. I'm like, man, this is a long night going. We got fights left and right, great performances, and we finally have Edwards returning here. I'm really looking forward to seeing his return to the cage.
Yeah, I'm, that's one of those fights. It's a really interesting fight. I talked about it on my podcast yesterday, where for Belal Muhammad, I think that this is a great opportunity for him to step in here and take this fight. Yes, obviously the risk of potentially, losing this fight, but to me, this is a win-win combination here for Belal Muhammad. Of course, you look at the salaries for this one. Leon Edwards, $9,000 over on DK. Belal Muhammad, $7,200. FanDuel, $22 for Leon, $17 for Belal Muhammad. I guess let's just kind of start off here. What is the path to victory for Belal Muhammad for those people who are maybe looking, especially on the DraftKings side of things, looking potentially at a pump play in Belal Muhammad?
Yeah, I think Belal Muhammad's a great pump play at 7,200. I think that his game plan should be to get into Edwards' face immediately, not allow him to get comfortable in the fight. You kind of, when you're getting back into the cage after having a long absence, you want to get comfortable in there. You maybe want to take a round or two to start really getting your rhythm. And if you're Belal Muhammad, you want to really disrupt that rhythm from the get-go and just get on there and keep your momentum going. That you've had great momentum in the UFC as of late. You've been the more active guy. If he implements that pressure-heavy style with volume striking, he could have some success. I mean, I do view him as the B side of the fight. Honestly, I still think that Edwards is just a little bit better everywhere. I think that Edwards, is a very crisp striker, has really good wrestling that is somewhat underrated. I think that he's been preparing for a very tough task in Khamzat Chimaev. So it's not like he's coming off the couch and this is like a last minute opportunity. The guy's been preparing for a return to the cage for quite some time. But Belal Muhammad, man, you talk about as of recently, he's been he's been amazing in there. So, if he can go in there and continue that momentum and not allow Edwards to get off to a fast start, I think that he could be successful with the slight uptick in volume.
Any concern about Leon Edwards in the layoff?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because every fighter's different, right? Like, Dominic Cruz, again, looked good. And you have some fighters that, need that constant activity to have success in the UFC. Edwards, it's been a while. It's been like a year and a half, right? It's pretty crazy when you think about it. But I do think that the skill set is there. I don't expect him to absolutely dominate Belal Muhammad because Muhammad's very good. If you look at the statistics, Belal Muhammad throws about 4.8 strikes per minute, but does absorb 4.03. So his defense is somewhat he gets hit a lot because he comes forward so much, and he's okay with getting touched up. But I think against like a sniper like Edwards, who doesn't really get hit that often, I think he could find some trouble, and especially a guy that can match the wrestling. So we'll have to see how the fight plays out, but I do view Edwards as the ace out of the fight. But really, it's not like a fight that I'm prioritizing, right? Like, it's the main event, of course. You want to have some exposure there, but I don't really feel like, man, I need to have this fight. Obviously, Belal Muhammad goes out there and gets it done at 7,200. He's probably optimal because of his price point.
Yeah, I was thinking about that kind of a little bit earlier as I was preparing for the show. Of like, I just don't know if it's one of those weeks where you have to have the main event. I mean, obviously you want to have some shares in the main event. Hunter asked about, is this a stackable fight? I feel like stack in MMA DFS is not exactly our favorite word to say, but to me, I don't think it's stackable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really view it as a stackable fight, especially with the new scoring system. I feel like, maybe stacks are going to be, less frequent. But I will have exposure. This is a fight that you should, not ignore by any means, because Edwards is so talented. Overall, he has a 50% finish rate. Belal Muhammad has a 28% finish rate. So that's pretty underwhelming in regards to the rest of the card. If it goes 5, you're probably still looking at a lower point total. But Edwards at 9,000, it's not like he's 9,400 or something like that. 9,000, he can make it work in 5.
Yeah, I just, to me, I'll have more shares of Leon Edwards in this position, but I do have a little small concern about in terms of paying off that price at 9,000. Of course, if you ever do miss any of our shows here on YouTube, you can catch them as a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Just go to awesemo.com/podcast to find the links for the podcast that you're looking for. And be sure to leave a 5-star rating and, of course, leave us a review as well. And there's a little perk we got going on if you do leave that 5-star rating and review, as you'll be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All you got to do is leave your Twitter handle or email address. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and reviews will be eligible up to 1 year. So check out over at the Awesemo Podcast Network. I was actually driving out to a work meeting today, and I was listening to the NBA podcast from this morning. I always like to check out, as I kind of think about who I want to put in my NBA DFS lineup. So be sure to check out our show over at the Awesemo Podcast Network. As I mentioned, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. Let's move on to the co-main event, which is one of 2 fights I truly believe in terms of GPP that you got to hit on. And of course, that is Misha Cirkunoy versus Ryan Spann. We'll talk about the other fight later on in the show, and maybe people might be a little surprised the placement of that fight of me saying I believe it is a must roster fight. So Cirkunoy 8,300, Ryan Spann 7,900, Cirkunoy $17 and Spann $15. Misha, it wasn't that long ago. Misha Cirkunoy, I think I kind of wrote him off. He went through that spell, and of course we've seen with Jan Blachowicz, you can't write off guys at the 205-pound division, but this is one of those ones where I just feel like you got to, in a GPP contest, you're going to have to win in this. I think on the betting side, I would straight up just look at playing the under 1.5 rounds.
Yeah, I absolutely love this fight for GPPs. I will hammer my exposure to this fight. If we look at Misha Cirkunoy, average time in the octagon, 4 minutes and 9 seconds compared to Ryan Spann, 6 minutes and 5 seconds. So both these guys like to get it done quickly. Misha Cirkunoy has a finish rate of 87%, whereas Ryan Spann has a finish rate of 83%. So when these guys win, usually it's quickly and, inside the distance. So I will be targeting this fight. I was actually pretty surprised to see Misha Cirkunoy as the favorite here, because just like you, I've written him off in the past. And, I think that he had a great performance against Jimmy Crute, but we've seen moments where Cirkunoy can kind of just, get, he can be broken in the octagon when he's pressured. He's good when he's starting to implement his takedowns and his strong ground game, how he did in the Jimmy Crute performance. That's exactly what he needs to do. Go out there, do what he's strongest at, and not try to stand with people and potentially get knocked out. Now, he's facing a guy in Ryan Spann who has a 2-inch reach advantage and a 2-inch height advantage. That shouldn't really mean too much, but I do view Ryan Spann as a very talented fighter. And you can look at his last fight against Johnny Walker and maybe have an asterisk next to that because of some potential shots to the back of the head. But we knew that fight was a GPP fight based on those guys, and he had Johnny Walker rocked several times throughout that. I favor Ryan Spann here at 7,900. He's an underdog that I really, really like. I will be targeting both sides and hammering my exposure to both of them because Cirkunoy's ground game and what he's been showing lately of how he gets people down and looks towards a submission victory, it's excellent. Excellent Peruvian necktie, very underrated submission. A lot of people don't target from front headlock position. Ryan Spann, though, should have the boxing advantage and does have some sneaky guillotine chokes where if he has his opponents hurt, he can sneak it on them. I don't really see him, submitting Misha Cirkunoy. I think a KO, TKO is much more likely, but I favor Ryan Spann in this matchup, and I'm okay with saying that.
Look, I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think that in terms of, I've already put in I'm reserved my seats for my 20 max entry. I would imagine I will have 80% shares on this fight, and I'm going to split it 40-40 down the line between these two guys. I just feel like you have to have this fight. I do think that the smaller cage potentially could benefit Misha Cirkunoy with looking to take it to the ground. I mean, look, I think if you're Ryan Spann, you got to use that reach to your advantage in this fight. Make this a stand-up fight. I mean, look, you know that Spann knows what Misha's going to attempt to do, but I look at this fight. To me, if you're looking at some prop bets in terms of this one, I would look at Cirkunoy via submission, and then on the other side, I would look at Spann by TKO KO.
Yeah, I don't hate what you're saying at all. I really like Ryan Spann, and I like what I've seen on regional scene. I like what I've seen in the octagon. I don't want to say that Misha Cirkunoy's last performance was a fluke by any means, but I feel like he kind of overperformed in that spot against a very talented, maybe a not a green fighter because Jimmy Crute's very talented, but maybe a fighter that wasn't as prepared as like a veteran should be. And I think that Ryan Spann could bring that veteran presence with 24 professional fights.
We'll move on to the next fight, which is Dan Ige versus Gavin Tucker. This is a fight that has went through some changes toward Dan Ige to get in the spot. And I do want to mention a question we got on Twitter in relation to this fight. It came from Hunter. He said, one of his questions was looking for our opinions on the grappling advantage in this fight, and if each could go over the ground. If basically just saying, what happens if the fight goes to the ground. I think that I favor Dan Ige on the ground, but I don't think it's a huge disparity between the two.
Yeah, it's so tough to say because I feel like this is a evenly matched bout. I think that Dan Ige is a tough opponent in the division, as I do Tucker. I think that they can negate each other's strengths in some aspects. 59% finisher takedown defensive rating for Dan Ige, 53% for Tucker. They're both good on the ground and good jiu-jitsu. I think on the feet, Gavin Tucker could have some edging, on there. I think that he could get the better of Dan Ige. But as far as grappling, if you're looking at stats, Tucker lands takedowns at a higher rate. His takedown accuracy is 42% and has an average of 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. Take that for what you want, because I feel like these guys are going to negate each other. It could end up being more of a striking affair. But Dan Ige, up to the Calvin Kattar fight, he was awesome in the UFC. I mean, he's 6-2 overall. Gavin Tucker's really kind of, turned like a mediocre regional career around, and he's really gone on a run in the UFC as well, 4-1. If you really think about his one bad performance in the UFC where he showed some cardio issues, that's the one thing that I would worry about, where I feel like Dan Ige's motor is pretty strong and he doesn't get tired. So perhaps Dan Ige can push a stronger pace and be the fresher man, say round 3. But I do think that Gavin Tucker is very skilled, and I do favor him just so slightly. For DFS, this isn't really my favorite fight. I do like Tucker's finishing ability, 77%. Don't foresee him getting a finish over Dan Ige. I mean, Calvin Kattar looked sensational in that bout, but Dan Ige has next level toughness. Dan Ige's finish rate sits at 57%. So it is a very, very competitive fight that I feel like these guys can go one round apiece, and it comes down to the third.
Look, I think this fight's going to go 15 minutes. I just looking at the odds. Of course, you can always check out the odds over oddshopper.awesemo.com. Danny Ige by decision plus 140. That is one I like. I mean, look, if you want to, put Dan Ige in your GPP lineups, I think your thought has got to be is can he get at least one, maybe two takedowns, maybe three, maybe he can get one takedown each round, but then how many strikes can he land? I think that you got to be looking in the 70, range of significant strikes along with total strikes for him to pay off that price at 8,600. If he only gets in the say 40 to 55-ish range in terms of significant strikes, I just don't know if he pays off that price for a GPP of what you're going to want. We're talking about a price point of 8,600.
Yeah, I'm with you. So like in this situation, right, like for DFS, do I really feel confident in Dan Ige at 8,600 against a tough opponent? Yeah, like I know he's 6-2 in the division. He's fought probably the better group of fighters than Tucker has, but that doesn't always translate here. Maybe he's going to not be able to take a shot as good because he took so many in the Calvin Kattar fight. We don't know. I do favor Tucker in the matchup. He's priced under 8,000, so I'll definitely have more exposure to him than Dan Ige.
Yeah, it's a fight that I think I might look more in cash, but I don't mind taking Gavin Tucker in terms of a GPP play. Of course, you always got to check out everything we got going on over at Awesemo.com. Of course, do mention our free premium content right now over at the site is MMA fighter projections to help you put together your lineups here for Saturday. Also, you got to take advantage of the promo that we got going on. You see it there at the bottom of the screen. Get 50% off an Awesemo plus weekly pass when you use the promo code Shamrock at checkout. Of course, great promo we got going on there. You got to check that out so you can take advantage of the ownership projection we have over there, which player projections, whether you want to play MMA, maybe you want to play a little NBA, NHL, whatever it may be. You got to take advantage of that promo we got going on over at Awesemo.com right now. You got to use that promo code Shamrock to get 50% off and also plus weekly pass. So take advantage of that. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. We will get to your question at the end of the show when we get done breaking down all of these fights. We'll move on. We got Jonathan Martinez taking on Davey Grant. Jonathan Martinez, 9,300 on DK, 6,900 for Davey Grant. And of course, Jonathan Martinez, one of the biggest betting favorites on this card. And I can't disagree with the betting odds of this one. I think from a DFS perspective, Pete, is how does he pay off that 9,300? I mean, obviously he's got to get a stop. I mean, that's clear there, but what does he got to do to pay off that price tag?
Yeah. So like Davey Grant, like if you think about Davey Grant, I definitely view him as the B side in this fight. Definitely. In the Martin Day fight, he showed some good toughness. He was resilient at times. I mean, Martin Day's a good striker. And then he landed the bomb of a left hook and had a great performance there. Split decision over Grigory Popov. And then lost back-to-back fights against Manny Bermudez and Damon Stashak via submission. So, I don't view Davey Grant in like the highest light. And obviously he's priced at 6,900. I just feel like he had not a fluke performance, but he had he landed a good shot against his opponent with that left hook. And, I think that Martinez is in a very good spot here to smash if you really look at what he's done. Like he's gone out there as a guy that's really just, viewed as a good submission grappler with some decent, southpaw striking. He ended up, finishing Frankie Saenz with a beautiful ground and pound. I mean, he throws great knees up the middle, good strikes overall, nice knockout over Pingwan Liu. I think that we're starting to see advancements in Martinez's game. And I think that Martinez is priced accordingly, needs to go out there and have a dominant performance, stuff to take down. Because Davey Grant, despite the fact that he thinks he wants to strike, if he starts getting picked apart with kicks or, a little bit more volume, because Martinez has the volume advantage in this matchup, I think he's going to want to shoot and shoot often. So Martinez needs to stuff the takedowns, which could make him a little appealing on FanDuel at $21. But 9,300 on DraftKings. I really like Martinez. I'll have my shares of him. Obviously, 69% finish rate, but I do view him as like a complete fighter. He has the finishability in striking and especially in submissions as well. And I think the submission game of his is completely underrated.
I've had a chance to talk to Jonathan Martinez on a handful of occasions. Didn't have a chance to catch up with him leading up to this fight. Very soft-spoken guy. You know, he's just he's not a very loud guy. He's a man that's some might say a few words, but man, you look at what he does there with his movement. And I think that's really what's going to be the key here for Davey Grant, or excuse me, against Davey Grant is, you know, that movement there. I do like Jonathan Martinez. I don't know how much I'll get to him in terms of it, just because, you know, the high price point, and, you know, we'll talk about Angela Hill here in a little bit. That's another high price point that I don't necessarily love. Just because of what it potentially could pay off. Of course, appreciate everyone that's in here on a Thursday night. Of course, be sure to subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube if you are not. Also, be sure when you hit that subscribe, you also hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. And of course, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. By the way, coming up after us with the NBA late slate live before lock to help you with some of those late swaps you need to make, as I know I'll definitely be tuning in because I got to make sure, see if I got to make any swaps in terms of my NBA lines. We'll move on to the next fight. We got Manel Kopp taking on Matthias Nikolai. And we were talking before the show, and we'll bring up kind of the conversation we were having earlier is with Manel Kopp after what we saw in his UFC debut. You know, are you afraid to put too much of him just because of, and you know, and I know you're going to bring up the point of it's a much different opponent, you know, this time out as opposed to his UFC debut.
Yeah, so let's talk about Manel Kopp. Manel Kopp, 15-5 overall, 93% finish rate. He's a very talented fighter. Very, very strong boxing and some underrated wrestling as well. And I really liked how he incorporated that in his debut performance against Alexandre Pantoja. Now, let's be clear. His debut performance against Alexandre Pantoja was not amazing by any means, but that is probably like the hardest debut you could possibly have. Pantoja is so phenomenal for the division. And I think a lot of people are kind of underestimating that fact to think that Manel Kopp would come in and just completely wipe the floor with Pantoja. I mean, put some respect on Pantoja's name. And, I think that Manel Kopp's going to make some adjustments as he has, throughout his career. He dances around a lot and he doesn't really commit to strong combinations all the time. But when he does throw, if he lands, he can hurt you at any moment. And against Matheus Nicolau, I think this is a very interesting bout. Matheus Nicolau, 3-1 in the UFC, looking to come back into the UFC and make a splash. So, I mean, it's a very interesting bout and an interesting underdog in, Matheus Nicolau. I really think that he's a name to circle and sprinkle in lineups because he is very talented, has strong boxing. He's good overall. But I just view Manel Kopp as the A side of the fight. I think he's got the more powerful strikes and has excellent wrestling. And I know that Nicolau is good defensively with his, takedown defense. But I still think that, Manel Kopp can test that, put him on his back. And at a 93% finish rate, I think Manel Kopp at 8,700. To be honest, I think it's an aggressive salary, but I do think that there is potential there.
I'd rather go to Manel Kopp than I would rather go with some of the other 9,000 options.
Yeah, I mean, the 9,000 options, right, outside of Edwards at 9,000, who, in my opinion, should have been priced the highest out of everybody because you have, how much stock do you have in his career? And he's shown you a lot to this point, 10-2 overall. You have other 9,000 options. Martinez, 4-2 in the UFC. Angela Hill, 7-9 in the UFC. Jourdain, 1-2-1. And Hani Yahya, 11-4-1, right? Like some inconsistent fighters that I just mentioned in those 9,000 range. But I completely agree with you. I think Manel Kopp, 8,700, a name that I'm going to be maybe a little bit more aggressive than the field. But I'm not ignoring Matheus Nicolau at all. I think that he's one of the best underdogs on the slate.
Yeah, it's it's just one of those things and that's why you got to pay attention to those ownership projections and figuring out where you do want to go on there. We'll move on to the next matchup. We got Eric Anders taking on Darren Stewart. Eric Anders, 7,300, 8,900 for Darren Stewart. Of course, really the big thing with Eric Anders leading up to this one is that he moved his training camp out to Fight Ready. His family's still living back in Alabama, but he made that decision that he had to do what was best for him and training out there with Santino and Eddie Cha and the crew out there. But he isn't one of those guys that, he's just an up and down fighter in the UFC, got off to a great start, but then he lost that split decision to Leo Machida there in the main event and a fight night card down in Brazil, but just up and down. I just, to me, it's just, he's one of those guys that, he's tough to trust, but when you're looking at that under 8,000 range, he's got to be one of the guys you look at just because of we see the potential there.
Yeah, 100%. I think that this fight is really, both fighters that we don't trust at all. I mean, Stewart is 5-6 in the UFC, definitely looks better in his second stint in the UFC than he did in his first. Eric Anders, 5-5 in the UFC. They both let us down multiple times. So I think that we have to tread carefully here. But I think the 8,900 price tag for Stewart is really, really aggressive. And the reason I think it's aggressive is because, he's essentially a 500 fighter in the UFC. Same with Anders. And I understand that it's probably and largely due to his performance against Kevin Holland, even though he lost on the scorecards. But let's be real, that was a great performance. He went in there and out-grappled him. And, I just think 8,900 is a little too rich for me. I'll be looking at Anders a little bit more than the public because I think that perhaps his ground game could finally shine through. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I feel like I say it every time he's on the card. He's a BJJ brown belt. He competes in jiu-jitsu quite often. And I know that Darren Stewart is a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. But we have seen Darren Stewart get submitted at times and get kind of out-grappled despite his good wrestling. I favor the southpaw here in Eric Anders. I favor the fact that he, can press forward, get it done in multiple ways. 5-5 in the UFC, but I think that he might be the stronger of the two. It's an interesting fight for sure, but it's the price point on Stewart that's really got me hesitant. Like, I was fully expecting this fight to be the 8,000, 8,200 fight, and I was like, okay, I'm going to split my exposure, but the 8,900 for Stewart kind of pulls me in the Anders direction.
So I've been interviewing Eric Anders since he was an amateur fighter, and me and him kind of always joke about this. The first stock photo I have of Eric Anders is him at a jiu-jitsu competition, but we just don't see it. And I remember one of the last conversations I had with him, we were talking about that, and basically he's like, look, man, I like to throw the hands. He's like, but it's something in his back pocket that we just, have not seen there. But on the Darren Stewart side of the equation, I guess the question really becomes, is him paying off that price tag of 8,900 on DK or $19 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, Darren Stewart strikes enough, but then really tries to engage in wrestling a lot to really control his opposition. And I think that type of strategy going up against Eric Anders, who's a strong guy, I think is really not the best strategy. I think that, Stewart should look to strike a little bit more and potentially win on the scorecards, because I think that, we've seen Stewart struggle with his cardio. We've seen both guys struggle with their cardio a little bit, but I do favor Eric Anders in the grappling scenario. So it's a lean towards Anders, and just for me, 8,900 is a little too rich for Stewart.
Moving on to the next matchup, we have got Angela Hill taking on Ashley Yoder. This is a rematch from 2017 when they fought on the Ultimate Fighter finale. Angela Hill getting the win in that one. Just kind of looking at the stats in terms of that one, Angela Hill landed 47 significant strikes, 65 total strikes. Ashley was 3 of 6 of takedowns, and I think that's got to be something, when you're talking about this one. Look, you think of Angela Hill, we think of volume. And obviously that's going to be a reason you play her potentially in here. I think she's a better play on FanDuel, potentially with those takedown defenses. But what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like Angela Hill quite a bit everywhere. I just like her to win the fight. 9,400 is a little insane. I think that her volume's amazing, 5.7 strikes per minute. She's there to get hit a lot as well, 5.16 received. I just think that she has evolved over the years. She's developed a better takedown defense, just better overall game to really complement her strengths, which is definitely her volume striking. And I think that she could potentially put on a better performance here against Ashley Yoder. I think that Yoder at 6,800, she's an okay punt play, but the punt play is based around her grappling and her wrestling. So it's the apex. It's a smaller octagon. Obviously, you're hoping that she can get her hands on Angela Hill and control her throughout or press her against the cage. I just see Angela Hill being able to kind of do what she wants in this matchup and prove that she should have had a better competition, and so she can start really moving up the rankings. So I like Angela Hill here quite a bit. 9,400 though. Can she get a stoppage? I mean, like 42% finish rate. I'd probably lean no. But if she did get a stoppage on top of her volume and you went aggressive on Angela Hill, you could be sitting there and, on top of the leaderboard because everybody's going to take that underweight approach because of it going the distance and her being so heavy with a price tag.
All right. Over 1.5 rounds. What do you think it is?
Over 1.5, minus 300.
Minus 700.
Ooh.
Over 2.5 rounds is minus 400. Fight goes to the distance, minus 355.
Wow. Yeah, I get it. And I completely agree with all of those lines. I'm just saying, what if Angela Hill is able to get some knockdowns? Or maybe she doesn't finish her, right? But she's able to knock her down several times. Now you're talking about some big, points getting boosted to her total. So we'll have to see, but it's definitely Angela Hill for me.
Yeah, it's Angela Hill, but I definitely see the value as a punt play in Ashley Yoder. Of course, big advantage of being a Awesemo Plus member is you do get access to our premium Slack account. Of course, if you're in there right now, you can get into the MMA channel and check out what everyone is saying, talk with fellow DFS players, plus you can talk with myself and Pete. So that's a great advantage we have over there at awesemo.com. Of course, also, Mr. Awesemo is in there as well. If you ever got any questions for Alex about his projections and how he's developing his lineups, you can always ask a question to Alex there. So that is a great advantage of being an Awesemo Plus member. Of course, you see there at the bottom of the screen about that promo. We do have it going on right now, weekly promo going on, so be sure to take advantage of that. Dana asked, says, was this fight rescheduled because of COVID? Yes, it was. I believe one of Ashley's corner people had COVID, so that is why the fight got scratched. It moved back to what, 2.5, 3 weeks,
something like that. Yep.
Because and initially this fight was made on 1 week's notice. They accepted the fight on a Saturday morning. They were going to fight 7 days later. So and I remember when we broke it down that week on the strategy show, because obviously the fight was still at that point, the one thing that we did mention about was, you wondered how much Hill was working on her wrestling.
Yeah. And, this kind of extension of a camp, so to speak, will definitely favor Angela Hill, right? She'll be able to really, patch up some holes and get some people to come in there to work on her takedown defense, for this specific stylistic matchup against Ashley Yoder. But, if Ashley Yoder goes in there and gets a hold of her and takes her to the mat, she's 6,800. Basically, she's the cheapest fighter right now. So she's probably going to break the slate if she goes out there. I'll probably have a couple shares of her, but I really, really expect Angela Hill to go out there and kind of just have a dominant performance.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Hill pick as well. Of course, we'll give our straight up picks at the end of the show because people are paying attention to those picks.
Well, I got to start actually picking, not just picking friends and all this and that. I'm going to start picking legitimately, and you're in trouble.
Oh, man. I mean, look, I'm just saying, our audience, they're keeping track. Because all I know is I'm watching the fights last weekend, and all I see is, ooh, Jason's up on Pete a little bit here.
I like a friendly competition. I'm cool with it. Let's do it.
Let's move on. Next up, we got Charles Jourdain taking on Marcelo Roja. Roja 7,100, Jourdain 9,100 over on FanDuel. $19 for Jourdain, $11 for Roja. Can you sell me a little bit on the underdog here?
Yeah, I can. And the reason I can sell you on the underdog is because Charles Jourdain has really let us down at the UFC level. Outside the UFC, he's looked amazing. In the UFC, he's 1-2-1. So he really hasn't had sensational performances. He has 100% finish rate out of his 10 victories. But Rojo stepping up on short notice is definitely going to favor Charles Jourdain, right? If Rojo had a full camp, I would really be looking at the underdog because I do think that he does possess some skills. He has shown that he can overcome some adversity. He's got heavy hands. He has good jiu-jitsu off of his back. Like, I like this kid. I think that he's a name to circle, but he's bumping up a weight class on short notice against Charles Jourdain. And maybe we finally see Charles Jourdain go out there and really, like, put it together, keep it on the feet, light him up with some combinations, and test that chin and put him in some bad positions, where Rojo has been often, especially in Kambache. So I do favor Charles Jourdain here. I will be sprinkling in Rojo because of the inconsistencies of Jourdain. But I do think, like, going forward with Jourdain, he's got a short leash with us, right? Like, we know if he's against a strong grappler, we don't really want to target him because his takedown defense is almost non-existent. He has been getting better over the years, but he's a real liability when it hits the mat. So Rojo is a guy to sprinkle in your lineups. 88% finish rate, 16-6 overall. It's a great record. Definitely can pull the upset.
Yeah, it's Jourdain's actually probably one of those 9,000 options I made. I wouldn't say extremely targeting, but he's definitely a guy that I do want to have some shares on. We'll move on. Next up, we got Rani Yahya taking on Ray Rodriguez. Rani 9,200, 7,000 for Ray. Of course, Ray stepped up on short notice. It was a weird situation where he was a backup fighter and literally finds out, day of the fight, you're fighting. And he's had 14 weeks to get ready for this one. But, like, Pete, this matchup is really easy to break down.
Yeah.
On the Ray Rodriguez side of the equation, I will say this. This is a potential live betting opportunity on Ray Rodriguez at this fight. If it gets out of the second round, you might want to see what that prop bet on Ray Rodriguez to win the fight. But for Ray, and he knows this, you can't make this a jiu-jitsu match.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people don't know who Rani Yahya is, and it really disappoints me because in the WEC, in the UFC, he's a really talented grappler, one of the best grapplers on the planet, 11-4-1 in the UFC. And, the knock on a lot of jiu-jitsu competitors and jiu-jitsu fighters, we always say that they struggle to take people down. But Rani Yahya is really kind of like weaseled his way into finding takedowns a lot. He relies a lot on single leg takedowns in order to start chaining his takedowns, low singles, will even pull guard sometimes. And, you don't like it when your fighter's on his back because then they're able to, be on the end of the receiving shots and be at a disadvantaged position. But, like, I think that Rani Yahya is going to find the submission here. I really do. I mean, Rodriguez in his fights goes to take people down a lot. And sometimes if he gets hit with a bad shot, maybe he kind of goes into, like, instinct mode and he tries to take him down. I would not suggest that at all. And I also saw on an interview Rodriguez saying he's not afraid of Yahya's ground game. And I'm like, man, you need to put some respect on Rani Yahya's ground game and especially do everything you can to not get there, right? Like, if you keep this fight up on the feet, you could win. But Rani Yahya knows what he's good at. I mean, he has a 77% finish rate, okay? He doesn't have a knockout on his record. He gets a lot of submissions. So he knows what he needs to do. It's Rani Yahya for me, 9,200. If Rodriguez is able to keep it on the feet, he could get a late TKO. I definitely can see that happening. But, I mean, that's tough to predict. If Rani Yahya has a bad weight cut, potentially we would look at Rodriguez a little bit more. But 7,000, I guess you can make a case for Rodriguez, but really it's Yahya.
Yeah, I spoke to Ray last Friday about this matchup, and one of the points that you talked about there was jiu-jitsu practitioners and their ability to take the fight to the ground. And I phrased the question basically along the lines of, I'm not saying in particular, but what's your thoughts about jiu-jitsu practitioners? And basically he said, yeah, they don't always have the best takedowns. But, like, to me, like, when you're talking about a game plan, the game plan, if you're in the Ray Rodriguez corner, is let's keep this thing on the feet. And I think particularly try to get this fight into the late second, third round, try to wear down Rani Yahya. I mean, look, I think in terms of GPP plays, I don't mind Yaya at all. Because, I mean, look, if he wins, he's going to win by submission. And that's what you're looking for there. So I think that, he's a guy that's sprinkling. I would sprinkle in Ray Rodriguez as a punt play, though. I would say I'll probably have 10-20% shares of Ray Rodriguez.
Ooh, that's I can't fault you because there is a path to victory, but there are so many men who have failed to do exactly that simple game plan against Hani Yaya. There's 26 men who have failed to do that game plan against Hani Yaya, and Hani Yaya is able to find submissions from everywhere. And, a lot of times fights end up on the mat. So Rodriguez really needs to be on his P's and Q's, do his best to stand up. But I just think that Hani Yaya is surrounded by so many talented people in his fight camp as well. They're going to really tailor the entire strategy around his strengths.
And these are typically the type of fights that Hani shines in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Hani Yaya, I might smash exposure to Hani Yaya. I mean, you think of the wins that Hani has had, and from the WEC over to the UFC. I mean, let me just pull up his record right here.
It's a great record, but then I'll sit there and say, Pete, who's his best win against?
I mean, Mike Brown. Mike Brown's an awesome fighter. I mean, granted, that is in 2011, but still, Josh Crispy.
Bro, that's 10 years ago.
I know, but
is Josh Crispy really a great win?
I would say Josh Crispy is a big win. Yeah, for sure. On New England scene, that's a big thing. And most recently, right, he had a draw against Enrique Barzola, and a lot of people, including myself, think Enrique Barzola is pretty talented for the division. So, I have a really hard time seeing Rodriguez going in there and just completely outclassing Hani Yaya, but stranger things have happened in the fight game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this is one of those fights that you definitely have to be looking at in terms of GPPs. Move on. Next up, we got Nasrat Haqparast take on Rafa Garcia. Of course, this is a fight that has gone through multiple change where Garcia actually is stepping in for Don Maj, who could not get a visa in terms of this one. Haqparast had replaced somebody else, so this is kind of the weird one that's come together. We do not have DraftKings lines out on this one. We do have FanDuel salaries, $21 for Haqparast, $8 for Garcia. What's your take?
Yeah, so I'm obviously waiting to see what the salaries are. But initially, I like Nasrat Haqparast against a lot of guys within the division. I know that Rafa Garcia is an undefeated fighter. Let's say that all undefeated fighters are not created equal. So you have to really do deep dive into his record. And when I looked at tape, I was actually impressed with what I saw from Rafa Garcia. Good striker, decent grappler as well. Has been pretty successful over there against Kambache. So the problem is, success in Kambache doesn't always result in immediate success in the UFC, especially when you're talking about one of the best guys in the division, Nasrat Haqparast, who has exceptional power, but really good speed for the division. Good southpaw, likes to mix things up. He has like a one big blemish to Drew Dober. He's 4-2 in the octagon, but everybody remembers how Drew Dober went out there and kind of flatlined him. I don't really foresee that happening with a lot of fighters going forward, but Drew Dober, I mean, we talked about it how last week, like he has that puncher's chance at all times. I want to see what these guys look like at the weigh-ins because I know this was kind of put together really quickly. But obviously initial, read on it, I do favor Haqparast in the entire matchup. Obviously Haqparast's weakness is his grappling. And if you're able to control him on the mat, you can win rounds and squeak out a decision. I think Rafa should be looking to do that here. Because if he stays on the feet with Haqparast, I think that he could get picked apart and kind of just outclassed throughout the contest. Garcia is definitely a talented fighter at 12-0. This is just another, like how Manel Kopp fought Pantoja on his debut. This is really similar. Like if Garcia comes in here and takes out Haqparast, then you got to pay attention to this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big step up for him. Of course, be sure to rock that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. And we got a good reason why you want to rock that one, as if you do rock our avatar on your DFS profile, you could win a free month of Awesemo Plus when you place within the top 3 of any GPP of 5,000 plus entries. Head over to awesemo.com/announcements/avatar, or simply Google search Awesemo Avatar for instructions how to download the image and rock that image. Always love seeing that Awesemo logo on top of those leaderboards. Move on. Next up, we got a female matchup: Cortney Casey versus JJ Aldrich. I hear you see Pete's shaking his head a little bit on this one. Cortney Casey 7,700, JJ Aldrich 8,500. Cortney Casey actually is an underdog that when I'm looking at under 8,000, she's someone I am looking at.
Yeah, these next two matchups are really ones that I'm not too fond of, but I mean, we have to talk about it and address it. But JJ Aldrich, 8,500. She's a decent striker. That's really like her go-to, is just good hands. Try to keep distance from her opponents, not allow her opponents to get close where they can be the more physical and, work towards taking her down or controlling her against the octagon. You think about JJ Aldrich coming up a weight class against Cortney Casey, who's pretty strong, and Cortney Casey can match people in the striking department. But I really foresee Casey pressing Aldrich against the cage here, especially at the apex and the smaller cage, being the more physical of the two, maybe working towards takedowns, but I highly doubt it because she only has 0.31 per 15 minutes. But that's definitely an avenue of success if she wants to visit that. And I think that she should, because if she stays on the outside, JJ Aldrich will be able to pick her apart from distance. Cortney Casey, 7,700, though. I like it. I really do. And I don't like the fight, but I think that this is an underdog that has a really good chance at pulling away a victory. 7,700, you don't know how the fight's going to go. I mean, one scramble, she could get a lot of control time. She could get some more takedowns than we're anticipating. But she's in a good spot here. 25% finish rate for JJ Aldrich. So despite the striking advantage, I guess I would lean towards Aldrich. It's not like she's putting people away left and right with the combinations. I do favor Casey here, and that really does not make me feel good, because Aldrich in the UFC 4-3, Casey is 5-7. This is like a 50-50 fight, but give me the underdog, I guess. 7,700, Cortney Casey. I'll have some exposure.
The question I got to ask.
Yeah.
Armbar from guard in play?
I'm going to say no. I don't. I could see it happening in the next matchup. I see this being a 15-minute decision. The thing is with Aldrich, right? Like, her average DK points, 46.6, even in wins, right? She doesn't score that well. Like, she's really not DFS friendly, whereas Cortney Casey could get an elevated score based on her grappling. So I still favor Cortney Casey.
Then you got Jinyu Frey taking on Gloria DePaulo. 8,800 for Paulo, 7,400 for Jinyu Frey. What's your take on this one, Pete?
Let me say, I think that everybody in the world's hating on Jinyu Frey, and I get it, because she's coming to the UFC and really dropped the ball twice. She's 0-2 in the UFC. Outside the UFC, she competed at a lighter weight class where she was the champ. Good strength of schedule, in Invicta. But she hasn't really shown, especially over the course of the years, she hasn't really shown that urgency that you want to see out of a fighter, right? She doesn't go out there and show aggression. And a fighter that lacks aggression is something you're kind of like, why are you fighting if you're not aggressive? Like, you're allowing your opponent to come to you where they're able to win rounds. And I really don't think that DePaula is like anything special. 5-2. Initially, before I even had to, confirm who this DePaula chick was, I'm like, Jinyu Frey's, she's an underdog and she's a vet with 15 fights. She could easily pull this off, and I would not be surprised. Like, she finally gets irritated and says, guess what? I'm going to turn things around. I'm making adjustments in my camp, or else I'm getting cut from the UFC. Going 0-3, she's out of here. She's going to be gone. So, DePaula does on the Contender Series, she has the volume advantage, whereas Jinyu Frey has the power advantage. I will say that the original tape of DePaula, it's not the best. It's really not the best, because she gets taken down, has really bad takedown defense, made adjustments for the Contender Series fight, but that still sticks in the back of my mind where Jinyu Frey could upset DePaula here. And just based on records, Jinyu Frey should be the favorite here. you're going to see that Jinh Frey will be the ultimate leverage play because everybody's going to be on De Paula. I still will side with De Paula, but I'm going to recognize that Frey has awesome leverage for the slate.
Of course, appreciate everyone here on a Thursday night watching the Awesemo MMA DFS Strategy Show. Of course, if you are not subscribed to Awesemo here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. As always, show your support for the show by hitting that thumbs up. That does help us out. We got one more fight left, and I think this is a fight. Yes, it's the first fight of the night, and I know, Pete, you never thought you'd really hear this from me. I think you got to roster this fight in GPPs. Jason Witt versus Matthew Schmelsberger. Schmelsberger, I mean, let's be honest about it. He was pretty much gifted an easy victory against Carlton Minus there in his first one. And of course, Jason Witt coming off at win against Cole Williams, of course, trains out at Glory MMA and Fitness there under James Krause. I did talk to Jason Witt last week. I think he's a solid underdog play here at 7,800.
Yeah, I think that Jason Witt's a really solid underdog play. I mean, 1-1 in the UFC, took a fight on very short notice, ended up getting, knocked out, but you can't really, blame him for that. It was a very tough opponent to go up against. Now has a rebound performance. Goes in there against Cole Williams and just completely outclasses him with his strong grappling. And I think that's his path to victory in this fight, right? Like, he's decent striking, but is a liability defensively because he keeps his head on the center line. And you saw Soto take advantage of that. And Schmelsberger throws really, really, really hard, like really, really hard. I've seen both of these guys fatigue over the course of, 15 minutes. I do still favor Jason Witt in the bout, but it's really, really slight. Like, how you were talking about, you're going to have a ton of exposure to Cirkunoy and Spann. I'll also have tons of exposure to this fight, just like you. I'll be smashing exposure because Schmelsberger did show me some power and some aggressive combinations. And we have seen Witt chin check several times, in the UFC and regionally. So, Schmelsberger is 7-2 overall. I think he could be the hot commodity that everybody's going to want to put in there because he has that nice 103 DraftKings points if you're box score watching. But I do favor Jason Witt with his grappling, able to dictate where the fight goes, needs to avoid the big shot. Excellent, excellent underdog pick here at 7,800. Like I said, I'm going to have plenty of both. It's like a 55-45 for me. Slight lean to Witt because of the discount. But, this is a fight that I'm prioritizing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Witt's ability to potentially take this fight to the ground. You mentioned about that UFC debut for Jason Witt taking on short notice. We should put all caps, short notice. He took that fight on 48 hours notice. He was in Kansas City, got the call. He's on a plane 3 hours later to go to Vegas.
Yeah, that's, man, when opportunity knocks, you got to answer. And, that answering that call got him into the UFC. Gave him a better matchup the second time around. He went out there, actually showed the skills, and perhaps he's able to do the same here because Schmelsberger, he had a weak win, if we're being honest, against Carlton Minus. It was a weak win. He did look good in it, but, in the third round, he fatigued heavily. And I think that a guy that's going to force you to grapple or defend takedowns in Jason Witt can really push and test that cardio. Smash this fight, guys.
By the way, I will mention this. I'm going to pull up the exact stat here. So in 2021, it's about 40% of betting underdogs are cashing at this point. That is something to put in there. I'm going to pull up the number here. I know heading into last week, it was like right at 39% in terms of that. So that's something to kind of think about when you're talking about underdogs. But let's get, as I find that number, let's talk about our straight up picks in terms of this one, because I'm telling you, I've got some picks on this card that I think are probably more because I've had good conversations with them and I want to see them win. So let's start off right with the main event. I'm guessing that we're both going to be on Leon Edwards.
Yeah, Edwards.
Co-main event. Who you going with?
Spann.
Give me Cirkunoy.
Okay.
I think the smaller cage, the ability to take the fight to the ground is why I like him there.
Okay.
Give me Dan Ige against Gavin Tucker. Really? Oh wow, we're already got two disagreements here. All right. I'm pretty sure we're both going to be on Jonathan Martinez.
Yep.
Both on Manel Cop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Eric Anders, Darren Stewart.
Eric Anders.
I'm going to go Eric Anders as well. I thought you might go Darren Stewart. Give me Angela Hill against Ashley Yoder.
Angela Hill.
Give me Charles Jourdain.
Same.
Hani Yahya, Ray Rodriguez.
Hani Yahya, and you're going for your boy. I already know it.
I got to go for my boy Ray Rodriguez.
Okay.
But, I mean, look, he has to stay away from the ground game. He has to keep the fight on the feet. Look, it's 14 weeks to prepare for this fight was a very interesting thing that he did tell me. I thought that was a little interesting note.
I think he needs a lifetime to prepare for Hani Yahya's jiu-jitsu, but I hope the best for your friend.
Are you the president of the Hani Yahya fan club?
I love Hani Yahya. I'm a WC guy, man. Like, I love Hani Yahya. He's so good.
Asparas versus Garcia.
Hot cross, yeah.
Yeah, same for me. Cortney Casey, JJ Aldrich.
Casey
with me. Jinyu Frey, Gloria DePaulo.
DePaula, I guess.
Give me Jinyu Frey with the upset.
Okay, I like it.
And then Jason Witt, Matthew Schmelsberg. Give me Jason Witt as a small underdog in this one.
Yeah, Jason Witt.
Let's get Samuel's questions in the super chat. His usual questions here. Top 2 cash. Let's start there.
Top 2 cash, I think, like, Angela Hill and and Edwards would make a lot of sense. Good cash plays.
Top 2 GPP.
I would say Ryan Spann. Man. Jason Witt, I guess.
Yeah, live dogs.
Jason Witt and Cortney Casey.
With you on there. Favorite inside the distance.
Ryan Spann.
Yeah, I think a co-main event you have to sit there and prioritize that. MVP and champion plays.
I will say that Angela Hill makes a lot of sense. I think Angela Hill for both. I think that's a strong pick.
Fight to break the slate.
First fight of the night.
Yeah. Sleeper / punt play.
Jinyu Frey could be the big ultimate sleeper. But I think that Cortney Casey's another.
Of course, coming up next is the NBA Late Slate Live before lock, so stay tuned to that as that'll be with Spags and EMAC. Thanks to our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Be sure to check out them, monkeyknifefight.com. You see it there right at the top of the screen. 100% instant match deposit up to $50 when you use that promo code Awesemo. Of course, be sure to check out today's free content, MMA fighter projections. Of course, myself and Pete will be back on Saturday for Live Before Lock. Until then, good luck to everyone with your DFS lineups.